One parameter on the Line 6 Helix that doesn't often get discussed is one that we're going to see on just about every block that we have. If we look here, I have a little preset built here just to use as an example of what we want to talk about today. So we see down here, we have a level control. If we come over to the cab block, we have a level control. We have this little EQ block, we have a level control. Delay, we have a level control. Verb, we have a level control. And this compressor at the end, we have a level control. What does this level control do? Well, all it's doing is controlling the amount of output level that this particular, whatever block we're on that has a level control, it's just controlling the output level of that block. It's not actually going to affect the tone of what's happening in that block. Let's say I have this LA Studio comp here at the end and I adjust the level. It's just going to control how much level is coming out of this, but it's not going to change how the compressor reacts. If I come into the reverb and adjust the level, it's not going to affect how the reverb reacts. It's just going to increase or decrease the output level feeding into the next block. Now, coming over to the amp model, you'll notice we don't have a level control, but that's actually going to be labeled as channel volume. The channel volume will be the same as the level control on other blocks. I've talked about this in past videos. This is just simply going to affect the output of the amp block and not actually affect the way the amp sounds. Now, if we go to the master control, that's a different story. That's affecting the output section or the power tubes, the virtual power tubes in this case, of that amp block. So you might say, well, who cares about the level control? And what does it matter if it doesn't change the way this block is going to sound in any way, shape, or form? Why talk about it? I'll just leave it alone. While that is true, there could be some potential problems that arise from it. You'll notice now I have in this particular preset 7 different places within these blocks that I could boost the level of this preset. And I could also boost it on the final output block. And an interesting point here is if I come to the last level control here on the LA Studio comp and raise or lower that, let's go up, let's say 5 or 6 dB here. If I bring that back down to the 0 mark and come up 5 or 6 dB on the output block, it's going to have the exact same effect as just using one or the other. So because we're not feeding this into anything else, it's not really going to have an effect other than to just raise the level. Where the problem lies is if we boost the level going into another block that is a nonlinear block. And what I mean by that is a nonlinear block will have its behavior affected by how much input level it's getting or how much output level is coming out of the previous block or previous blocks. So if I take something like an amp here that we know is going to react different if I hit it with more input, and here's our tone without doing that. Now, if I come over to this little parametric EQ block that I have here, I'm not going to mess with the EQ at all, and I see these are kind of off by a little bit here. So I'm not going to mess with the EQ block. You see that's just basically set to 0. Whether I have it on or off is not going to affect the tone at all. But if I come to this final level output control here and boost it, we might not get the behavior we think is going to happen. We might think, oh, we're going to get this huge volume jump, but we're not. All it's going to do is saturate the front of this amp, and this amp is going to almost act in some sense as a compressor and squash the volume jump, but just saturate more. Watch what I mean by that. So really all it's doing is acting as a clean boost or cut. And is going to saturate that amp more or less. So you can see where the problem lies here now. If we aren't aware that a particular block is a nonlinear block and the amount of input level coming into it is going to affect how it sounds, and we go boost the output level of the previous block, we're going to affect maybe in a negative way how a particular block is reacting after we've already dialed it in. So as you can see here, we probably wouldn't want to touch this level control unless we fully knew that we wanted this to act as a clean boost. Coming over to the amp and the channel volume, you could say, well, I'm going to adjust here, but keep in mind that it's going to affect every other block after it. So we come to the end here, something like the LA Studio comp, let's say, and let's see how I have this set up. You can see I'm getting maybe 1.5 dB to 2 dB of gain reduction. Well, if I come to the verb before this and crank the level control up, now I haven't changed the sound of the preset, but now I'm going to be hitting the front of the compressor harder, and look what happens. We get not only a level jump, but more compression, and that may or may not be something that we want. Same thing is going to apply if we zero this back out and I come to the channel volume and crank it. Come back over to our compressor. You'll notice we're back to getting more compression than we wanted. So that's just one example, right? So if we change any of the outputs of a block, it is going to potentially affect any blocks after it. If it's a nonlinear block, it's going to affect it. If it's a linear block, it's not going to. It's just going to make things louder. But it is just food for thought to really think closely to where we want to adjust levels within a preset. And is it going to affect any block after it in a way that we don't want? Or maybe it's in a way that we do want. But just awareness is key here, and know that when you change these levels, there is the potential for kind of messing things up that maybe we've taken a long time to dial in. I hope that that was a helpful, quick tip. I hope you enjoy the music I leave you with. The links are below to all the presets you're going to hear on the way out. Thanks again for tuning in.